This is Barry McKnight, the voice of the Troy Trojans. You're tuned in to the Phillip Jordan Show podcast.
Back by nobody's demand but our own. Welcome in to another episode of the Phillip Jordan Show. I am Phillip Jordan. You check me out over at the Auburn Wire, and we are back for another live late night edition of the Phillip Jordan Show. Did some good numbers last week, a lot of more engagement than recently when I did the live stuff kind of later at night after a game or whatever. So we're going to kind of test the waters with that here on the show and do some late night, maybe not 10:30 or after all the time, maybe more 9 o'clock-ish with some stuff in the future. But hey, we're here to do it. We're here to talk with you and got a guest on here. So Brandon is not with me like he was on those two before, but we will have a guest, Luke Chaney from On3, where he covers the Miami Hurricanes. Will be on in just a little bit. We had a conversation earlier on Monday, and he'll be joining me on the show in just a bit. Remember, you can check out the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check me out on YouTube, where I hope you're checking out right now at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel, or over on Facebook, same thing there. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment on the video. And I'll read those on future editions. Or if you're in here while we're live, if you put in a question or a comment, we're going to get to those toward the end of the show. So we're not going to do those as we're going on, but at the end of the show, we will do that as well. So I told you who's going to be the guest today. Just real quickly, we're coming on here after the NFL playoffs game between the Steelers and Houston. I figured Houston would win. Their defense would give Aaron Rodgers trouble. I didn't see it going as bad as it did there for the Steelers, only scoring 6 points, but they've pretty much been limited offensively most of the year. Honestly, Aaron Rodgers has been a big part of why this team has been successful throughout the year. He's been the best part of this team. And getting to the playoffs, it did feel like there at the end, this was it for Aaron Rodgers. He has hinted at that. So I think that's probably where they're going to go with that. And a great career. Kind of one of them things, just kind of like Favre, kind of thinking, okay, you only got the one Super Bowl. But a great career for Aaron Rodgers. And if that is it in 5 years, he'll be in Canton, Ohio. And I'm sure if this is the it for him between now and then, you'll also probably see a big deal there too, where they will honor him at Lambeau Field, and he'll go into their Hall of Fame as well. Really was a great weekend, fun weekend of games. First started off on Saturday with Carolina and the Rams. The Rams going, I think, 10.5-point favorite. Carolina played great in that game, and just the Rams took it from them there at the end. Packers, again, fall apart. I don't know why Matt LaFleur is still the head coach with the Green Bay Packers. He really shouldn't be. They should move on from him, but they're not. And he will be back. It looks like they're trying to work on a contract extension with him, but the Bears made the plays at the end. The Packers again blew a 21-3 lead. Brandon McManus, the kicker, missed 2 field goals and an extra point. That's 7 points that were left out there for the Packers, and he makes those kicks. Even if he makes an extra point, there's a chance to tie the game there and send it overtime. But the Packers lose. The Bears are moving on. Of course, Josh Allen, the immovable object there for the Buffalo Bills, beating Jacksonville. Great year for Jacksonville. Just the way it ends. Buffalo is my Super Bowl pick. I'm picking them to play the Rams in the Super Bowl. The Eagles, once again, I think we've seen too, the Eagles' defense was really good this year once again. Offensively, they didn't have the run game that it did last year, and we're still seeing Jalen Hurts being limited as a quarterback. He's great at throwing the ball down the field, but still the intermediate in the middle game is still a struggle there for them. Look, the Patriots just got after Justin Herbert. Now he's 0-3 in the playoffs. So that's going to be a discussion for him going into next year. But New England played great. So we got some interesting matchups in the second round. You'll have Houston going to New England. You got Buffalo going to Denver. You've got the Bears they will have to travel. They'll be at home, and play the Rams, and then the 49ers travel Seahawks. So good games coming up there as well. Let's do some portal talk. Cam Coleman going to Texas. this kind of seemed like the favorite for that Cam would be headed that way to the Longhorns. And they also add NC State transfer running back Hollywood Smothers. He flips him. He looked like he was going to Alabama, but now he heads over to Texas. He had 939 yards, 6 touchdowns. So obviously Texas is loading up big time to put some great talent around Arch Manning going to next year. I really feel like Texas is going to be a big favorite once again in the SEC going into the season. Maybe not the overall favorite. Maybe some people will hold back on that just to see. But I think Arch and the Texas team really played better as the year did go on there. And for Alabama, losing out the player, they lost some guys. And you kind of wonder, like, Alabama's got money, but do they have the money to compete with these teams? And that was one of those things there. You saw Horton, also the receiver. I thought at times was maybe their best receiver. I know he played a great game in the Iron Bowl against Auburn and just had some big moments throughout the year. I thought going into the year, he was a big hit for them coming from Miami. But he is going to Texas A&M. So the Texas schools are loading up Tech, A&M, and the Longhorns. It's interesting, though, saw Ty Simpson has not signed his NFL paperwork. I thought that was interesting, and seeing like teams are trying to convince him to stay in college, offering up to $6.5 million. Miami has been one because, of course, they're going to need to replace Carson Beck after this playoff run. And then also, saw Tennessee was on the list, too, as well. We'll see if Ty Simpson changes his mind. Look, he's listed right now as the third best quarterback prospect, but his season didn't end great. But also, you can go into next year, your stock could drop even more. So it's an interesting decision there if he decides to come back to college and play somewhere else. I don't think there's I wouldn't say any chance of going to Alabama, but just I think with Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, they're ready to see one of those guys out there on the field. I think it's best for both sides that he's not playing for Alabama next year. For Ty Simpson, if he does play college, it would be great to be somewhere else probably. Then for Alabama, they just kind of need to turn the page on that one. And because if they don't, one of those guys are going to hit the portal and are going to be out of there. LSU finally got their quarterback with Sam Levitt there. He committed to LSU over Tennessee, and now Lane Kiffin has his quarterback there. And that's one that they're really trying to go hard after. I will say this. I was kind of worried about Auburn with Alex Golesh, just when you saw all the players that had hit the portal, especially on the offensive side of the ball that were leaving Auburn. But I think they've kind of turned things around. Byron Brown is going to be a big player for them, one of the best, I would say, quarterback prospects in the portal. I also would also like to look at these running backs. The running backs for Auburn. They went and got Baylor Bryson Washington. He had 1,000 yards in 24 this past year, not as much 788, but really good running back. You pair him with Jeremiah Cobb coming back, and then Omar Mattson and Alvin Henderson. We'll see what they fit into this. The freshman running backs, they are two really good players too for Auburn, and with Byron Brown at running. They should be really good in run game, and I'm not really worried about their defense, DJ Durkin. So I think things are looking up for Auburn going next year. I mean, I'm not going to say they're a playoff team. They're not. I think the biggest thing for Alex Golesh next year is just get this team to 7 wins. Guarantee a winning season is break the streak, and I think that really would give you some positive direction for the program. Real quickly, too, on Sunday, college football playoff expansion, the deadline is coming January 27th. We're getting closer to that. Heather Dinage over at ESPN. I had an article out or report on ESPN. 16 teams coming if the SEC and Big Ten can compromise. 5 conference champs. That will mean all your Power 4 teams would get in basically. So this year Duke would have been in. The only SEC team, of course, is Miami, who we're about to talk about with Luke. Also, 11 at-large teams would get in with that. So you would have all 4 Power 4 teams, conference champions would be in. And then, of course, you would have a group of 5 team or group of 16 come in now. You have the Pac-12 returning. Now, apparently, this is the Big Ten trying to leverage in the SEC or the other conferences and go into 24 teams in 2 to 3 years. So teams and conferences can kind of prepare themselves to eliminate the conference championship games and have more play-ins, which has been a theory that's been thrown out there for conference championship. We can instead of having conference championship games, have play-in games. I think 16 is too many. I know it's coming. I know. I'm not in denial about that. I mean, I'll still watch the games. I'll still enjoy it, but I'm not for 16 teams. I think you're just you're just really ruining the regular season product, in my opinion, by continually adding teams. And we go to 24. Now we're in territory where are people going to stop caring about the regular season? I think they'll care about their team, but will the regular season mean as much? Because look, we see it in college basketball. I love college basketball. I'll watch it year round or throughout the season anyways. But I do believe college football, you're in a dangerous spot because there's some folks that are kind of turned off with how the sport is going with the money thing. It's obviously showing you got to be one of the big teams willing to spend the money, and there with no cap. That's kind of where it's going. Players are going to schools, like I mentioned, with the Texas schools, but also with adding teams to the playoffs. Keep adding teams. I think college football is running a very dangerous situation when it comes to potentially really turn off some fans, which they have turned off some. I mean, not a lot. I mean, they're still, it's more popular than it's ever been. The product on the field better, has never been better with college football, but still, I think that we have some dangers going on right now. So we'll see how that goes. January 23rd, portal and all that stuff. And hey, we have a championship game on Monday as well. And let's jump into talking one about the teams. Let's talk about Miami. We will jump into Indiana later on in the week. We'll jump on their side. But earlier today, on Monday, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Luke Chaney of CaneSport of On3, covers the Miami Hurricanes. We'll go about 20 minutes talking about this Miami team. Is the U back? We'll look at the Fiesta Bowl win over Ole Miss and just the overall run. Carson Beck. I had to get in some Keontae Scott, the Auburn connection there with Miami, and of course his thoughts on the championship game. So all right, so here is my conversation with Luke Chaney from On3 about the Miami Hurricanes. All right, joining me on the show today. Today is a kind of a part one of the national championship preview, and we'll be looking at the Miami Hurricanes on the show today. And joining me is Luke Chaney. Check him out where he covers Miami over at On3 and CaneSport. Also, writer at Coral Gables Magazine. And Luke, I appreciate you coming on the show. I guess for you guys covering Miami, it's not much a big travel situation since the game is going to be right there in y'all's backyard. But I appreciate you coming on.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just have fun to start this thing off. A very, very talk show, radio show question: is the U back?
No, not yet. Not yet.
I had to ask it.
No, you had to ask.
You got to ask: is Texas back? Is the U back?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that it's a little like whenever you ask someone who lives in South Florida, who's either a Miami fan or they cover Miami or someone just affiliated with the program, they hate hearing that, right? Like the coaches hate hearing is the U back because it just creates those expectations of what Miami was back in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, or the early 2000s rather. And college football nowadays is way different, right? I mean, like you're not going to see a roster as talented as the 2001 Hurricanes roster just because, with the transfer portal, with NIL, it doesn't create that the pathway to create that sort of 2 deep, 3 deep depth that's in those old Miami teams had. So to answer your question, I would say no, the U is not back. If they win this championship coming up, I guess like in the sense of they're already are back in a state of national prominence, but I would avoid saying the U is back. That's a pet peeve that I've seen a lot of Miami fans have with we'll say outside or national media is that you see Miami, and this has been a thing for the past 15, 20 years while they've kind of been in this sort of hiatus from the national prominence, is that whenever they start creeping into the top 10, the top 15, you start hearing rumblings like, oh, is the U back? Is the U back? I would say no to that.
Yeah, I've noticed every time Mario Cristobal gets asked a question, he's very respectful of the history, but also we're looking forward. I still remember, I think it was Mark Richt's first year after he came after being fired, dismissed, whatever at Georgia. And I think they won 9 games that first year. And everybody said, okay. Then of course it didn't happen that way. But, and you're right. In today's age of college football, it's going to be hard for anybody to have a run like that.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm in the state of Alabama. The Alabama fans here are having a hard time understanding that the Nick Saban era stuff is not going to happen again. You're still going to be good, but you're not going to dominate college football. And I think there's a little bit of accepting of that, that's being a struggle for some of the people in the state I'm in when it comes to Alabama. And this has been an incredible run. I feel like the Fiesta Bowl was a game where the offense had to do a little bit more, because Ole Miss, while did not possess the ball long, they were hitting some big plays and keeping themselves in the game. A little bit more from Carson Beck in this one, but the defense has been great. The line of scrimmage, that's where it's all been set up for Miami, with just the time possession against Ole Miss, but just being able to run the ball with Fletcher and those running backs. What's been the biggest thing that stood out to you about this 3-game run for Miami?
You said it, the line of scrimmage. That's an area where Miami's had the upper hand in their 3 wins during their playoff run. On the offensive end, the offensive line has done a great job of creating holes and creating push for their downhill power first run game. They've leaned on Mark Fletcher, they've leaned on Marty Brown during these 3 games, and they've rushed for over 150 yards in each of their 3 contests against A&M and Ohio State, and then of course in the Fiesta Bowl against Ole Miss. And Miami is a team that everyone knows their identity, right? Everyone knows they're going to run a bunch of duo, they're going to run a bunch of counter, they're going to play a physical brand of football that is focused, that is centered around its trench play, and then everything else is extra on top of that. And you see that with the intention that they place on the inside run game and running between the tackles, and it's a singles hitting offense, right? Like the Hurricanes, they don't hit a lot of home runs. I think I checked this before the playoffs, and I doubt it's changed much since then, but they ranked, I think, 60th in explosive plays of 20 plus yards. So they're an offense that, they're not, yes, they do have your explosive plays because of Malachi Tony and whatnot, but they hit their singles. They like getting those 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5s, picking up 4 to 5 yards at a time with their backs. And then on the defensive end of the ball, with their trench play, so much has been said these past few weeks about what they have going on the defensive line. Ruben Bain and Keem Mesidor, I think most people would agree that that's probably the best edge tandem in the country, and they've just created so much pressure, really bothered Marcel Reed and Julian Sane. Ole Miss did a really good job of kind of scheming against those edge rushers by getting the ball out quick, playing an up-tempo brand of football that kind of counteracts and neutralizes that pass rush. But yeah, this Miami team is dominant in the trenches, and listen, this championship game against Indiana is going to be real good, because Indiana has also been very excellent in the trenches on both sides of the ball, even though on paper they might not be as tall or weigh as much, but they're just good. That's all you can say about that.
And also the Carson Beck part of this, and the first 2 playoff games against A&M, against Ohio State, it was he made some important throws in this game, but a lot wasn't asked of him, or really the offense, because the defense was playing so well and in the run game. But this game against Ole Miss, a little bit more for him: 23 of 37, 268, 2 touchdowns. Did have the 1 interception, and obviously the game-winning rushing touchdown. I think a lot of people maybe didn't watch Miami all throughout the whole season, or miss some games here and there. You just kind of hear Carson Beck's name, and you're like, okay, he's going to some down the road and mess it up. But if you really look at his numbers second half of the year, he's been playing really well and protecting the football. 9 interceptions the first 8 games. But after that SMU game, only 2 interceptions, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's really done a good job of just, I think, running the offense and playing smart football and not turning the ball over. What have you been seeing out of Carson Beck? Not just the playoffs, but second half of the year that kind of helped this team get to where they're at.
Yeah, so we all know about the slide that Miami had, or the valleys they had in the middle of their season, losses to Louisville and then to SMU. And Carson Beck was a pretty major reason why they lost those games. I mean, especially against Louisville, threw 4 interceptions. Against SMU, he threw a couple interceptions, one of which wasn't his fault, but still, you don't want to have multiple turnovers in a road conference game. And since that game, which was Miami's 6th of the season, he's really, really turned things up, or 7th of the season, I believe. He's really turned things up a notch in the second half. He has been playing pretty turnover free. I mean, I think he's only had 3 interceptions in the second half stretch. And that's been the main thing for him. I think especially during this playoff run, Miami hasn't asked him to save them, to play hero ball. They've asked him to, hey, move the sticks on 3rd and 3, move the sticks on 3rd and 4. To give him credit, while his stats aren't, super gaudy during this playoff run, he's been making some big time plays, especially on 3rd downs. Even in that Ohio State game, I mean, he only had, what was it, 130, 140 passing yards. Not a super, lucrative passing game from him, but I was very pleased with his performance because he stepped up when they needed him to. When it was 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, I think the Hurricanes were over 50% on 3rd down conversions in that game, and that was Carson Beck was a major reason why. And then, of course, in the Ole Miss game, I mean, he had his struggles during bits and pieces during the game, especially early on. He was a little shaky, but as the game went on and as Miami needed to put up points because Trinidad Chambliss and that Ole Miss offense was really hit into gear, Beck made the plays when needed to, especially on that last drive. And you saw why he was given $4 million by Miami before the season. Just the experience that he showed on that last drive, not letting the moment get too big for him, having the composure, like on that touchdown run, having the composure to go through his progressions, see that there's not anything there, recognize that it's man defense and that Ole Miss has left the entire left side of the field open, and to then, scramble in and score a touchdown. I mean, that takes a certain moxie and composure, like I said, to be able to do. So I've been very happy with how Carson Beck has looked, especially through the second half of the season. And then, like I said, in the playoffs, he hasn't, blown away these he hasn't, been dominating, but he's made the plays when needed to. He stepped up when needed to, and he's been the perfect complement for a run-first approach that Miami's offense has undergone.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Just as a fan of storylines and headlines, I was mad at Georgia for losing to Ole Miss because I'm sure you guys were probably, okay, they win on New Year's Eve. Miami wins, so, okay. It should be a good game for Georgia Ole Miss, but Georgia wins, it's going to be a big storyline, Beck versus old team. So, and I was kind of hoping for that, but as a fan, just disappointed a little bit. Of course, and I cover Auburn for Auburn Wire, so also we've been paying attention to Keontae Scott over there at Miami. Has been playing really, really well. Yeah. When he was at Auburn, he played really well when he was on the inside, but then when they moved him out to outside corner, he struggled a little bit there. But he has played well. He has balled out in these games. Coached by Zach Etheridge, also a former Auburn Tiger. 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 TFLs there in the first one against A&M. I did not know Keontae had that in him, that kind of level play. And then, of course, the big, huge pick six. I mean, the way he read that play against Ohio State, you rarely see a defense back, even at the NFL, read something that play that well and do what he did with that, take it to the house. Really big momentum moment. Just for Keontae Scott with his play, what's been your takeaway from him?
Yeah, I mean, it's what a get from Miami. He's been not only one of Miami's most impactful defenders, I think that he's been one of the best defensive backs in the country this season. And as you said, Auburn last year utilized him more than necessary as an outside corner when he's not that, right? He's a nickel guy. He's a guy that likes to play close to the line of scrimmage. He's very good in the box, and that's exactly where Miami has used him this year. With Corey, because Miami's had a new defensive coordinator this year, Corey Heatherman from Minnesota, And Miami's defense has been excellent, and a major reason why is because he has them playing I don't know if simple is the right way of putting it, but it's very read and react, not overly complicated. And for a defensive back like Keontae Scott, that's allowed him to, hey, see man, see ball, attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just the stuff that they've mixed in with him as far as using him on blitz packages and having him rush the quarterback. They use him as a blitzer quite a bit, and he's had 5 sacks this year. He's been awesome for Miami. There was a scare in the second during the later games of the regular season where he had a right foot injury and it was looking like the season could be at risk. But he was able to heal up and return to the lineup for the playoffs. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned the A&M game; he was spectacular. In the Ohio State game, of course, he had that pick six where you said it. He read the play perfectly. He saw it on film and turned it into a touchdown. He's been such a great get for Miami, and he's one of several, key players that Miami picked up last offseason through the portal that have really turned it on and made big time impactful plays throughout their postseason run.
Because when this postseason run is give Auburn fans even more reasons to be mad at what Hugh Freeze did while he was the head coach there. Now look at this game against Indiana, number 1 team in the country, and they have been blowing out. They've blown out Alabama, they've blown out Oregon, and it's a team where they rarely make mistakes. So obviously that's heightened for you. Of course, Miami has done well that in this playoff, and we mentioned this is going to be a game that's one up front. These two teams, just the way they are, is physical brand of football. And of course, you mentioned that Ole Miss got the ball out quick, and Indiana with Mendoza, that's kind of part of their game, getting him. What's going to be the keys for you for Miami to come away with a national championship next Monday night?
Yeah, on the offense side of the ball, it's continuing to find success in the run game. I don't think that. Listen, if Miami has to, like I said, if Miami has to rely on Carson Beck play hero ball, and if Indiana can take away the run game and turn this into as one-dimensional a game as possible, I think the Hoosiers win pretty comfortably. Miami needs the run game to work out, and Indiana has defended the run very well this year, very, very well this season. I think if they can hit that 130, 140 mark in the run game. Maybe not get up to the 150, 160 mark, but just 130, 140, be able to have enough success in the run game to set up the second and manageables, the third and manageables, keep the sticks moving. I think that'll be huge for them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's all about pressuring Fernando Mendoza, right? When he has a clean pocket, he has looked awesome, especially in that Oregon game. I mean, his ball placement was beyond elite. I mean, some of the passes he was hitting, I was like, wow. I mean, that's he's a very special passer, a very special quarterback. I think if they're able to pressure him, and Indiana does tend to, they get the ball out quick, but they do tend to hold on to the ball a little bit more than Ole Miss in that regard. Ole Miss's offense is rapid fire. They get the ball out in 2.2 to 2.5 seconds. Indiana's more in that 3-second range. So it's all about getting home, right? If Ruben Bain and if Keem Mesidor can get home and pressure Mendoza and force him in some sort of uncomfortable situations, I think that would be massive for them. They just have to mix up their defensive fronts and make things as convoluted for him as possible, because if he has a clean pocket for most of the game, he's going to do well. Just he's a really good quarterback, and Indiana has a good group of receivers. So I think big key to watch out for on next Monday.
And last question: what is the positives, the impact of having this thing in Miami, and being out there?
I mean, I'm curious how that's gonna play out on Monday, as far as like what percent of the stadium will be Miami fans. Because of course both teams have their allotted allotted tickets to the game. So either way, there's going to be a pretty fair representation of Indiana fans there. But Indiana also travels well. I mean, I remember just seeing the crowd in the Peach Bowl, and it was like 85 to 90% Indiana fans.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. They travel very well. They have the largest alum base in the country, which I did not know that previously, but
I didn't either. I've learned a lot about Indiana over the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of Hoosiers spread out throughout the country. And also, of course, with, Fernando Mendoza he's from South Florida. He's, grew up in Miami. He's Cuban. So I'm sure there's a contingency of people here in Miami who are Indiana and Mendoza supporters as well. So yeah, I think it'll make a difference for Miami just from the familiarity of playing on their home field. And, I'm sure they will have a larger amount of fans at this game because it's at Hard Rock rather than if the game were somewhere else. But I'm not expecting a huge home field advantage for Miami in this game. I think, honestly, if we're to predict this kind of split of Indiana to Miami fans, I think it'll be 50-50 around there.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. Of course, we recorded this on Monday, so we got a whole week to get ready for it. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a really good football game next Monday night when these two play for the championship. And Luke, appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun having you on the show, talking all things Miami Hurricanes. If the listeners and viewers want to check it online, where can they find you and all the work you're doing?
Yeah, so I write for the Miami Hurricanes on CaneSport, which is part of the On3 network. Do a lot of football, basketball, recruiting stuff. So if you're a Miami fan, you can find me there. If there's anyone here that is listening that lives in the Coral Gables area, check out my work at the Coral Gables magazine. It's a lot more local news, local entertainment news. I know it might not be up a lot of people's alley, but if it is, you can find me there as well.
All right, Luke, appreciate it. Everybody go check them out for great coverage of the Miami Hurricanes leading up to the national championship game against Indiana Hoosiers next week. And Luke, appreciate the time, and I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. And again, thanks to Luke for coming on the show. Of course, that was recorded earlier in the day on Monday. So was that part of the show is not live for everybody checking out. All right. So real quickly, I got some comments, so we're going to run through these real quick. And like I said, if you're still here with the show, I know it's after 11 o'clock Central Time. It's past midnight on the East Coast. But if you have a question, real quick before we get out of here, anything, just put it in comments. Keep it clean. I already had to ban somebody for some weird comments here on the feed. Let's go with we got a bunch from Anthony Manzano. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Anthony. I just wanted to say hi. Appreciate it. I think you were watching us, me and Brandon, when we had our live reaction to the Miami win over Ole Miss last week. So I appreciate you coming back to the channel. All right. Phillip, do you think it's hurting Miami when it comes to recruiting these portal quarterbacks that were still in the playoff and can't fully commit to having a full recruiting visit with them? It obviously is dividing up your attention. That's for sure. You can't fully engage in that with your coaches like you want to because you're preparing for play for a championship. So I think without doubt it would hurt. I mean, and that's the only thing too. You hear like Nick Saban, whenever they win a national championship, they're always wanting to jump ahead and get into recruiting because they were behind in recruiting. That was back when we had the traditional signing day. And you saw with some of the NFL teams like Bill Belichick says the worst thing about being in the playoffs is you're behind in scouting. So, it's one of the things where you're playing for a championship, other teams are not. So they're able to kind of do the recruiting thing, the portal thing, while you're trying to do it, you're attempting to do it, but at the same time, you're preparing for a championship. Now, Anthony had posted this. Of course, I think this was probably before I had said the conversation with Luke was pre-recorded, which when we're doing these late night episodes, if I have a guest, I'm just going to let everybody know those are going to be pre-recorded from early in the day. I'm not going to ask somebody to stay up past midnight to come jump on the show. Anyways, he did ask. I am going to read it, though. Luke, who do you think, based on your reports, that you're hearing Miami targeting as their top guy in 27 for quarterback position? Well, Luke's not here, Anthony, but I did want to post up your question because you asked it. But again, that was a pre-recorded conversation. So, but I'm pretty sure if you tweet at him, he might respond to that. So, anyways, all right, then Brandon, who is not here this week on camera, but he had to get some comments in. Brent Eisman, Steelers struggled against that Houston defense. Time for Aaron to call it career. I think it's over. I think he's going to retire now. And Brandon, of course, is excited. We finally got our guy, playoff team next year. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. Of course, with the news of LSU landing a quarterback. And again, appreciate it. Look, this is something I'm doing new once or twice a week. Going to pop on here with a show. Do a live stream. Maybe later tonight. I may do some closer to 9 and 10 versus there. I was watching the Monday night game, so I wasn't going to jump on here after that had ended. But again, if you checked out the show, I appreciate it. If you're listening to the audio podcast, I appreciate it. And we'll do more of these. We'll do another one of these later on in the week. I'm probably aiming for Thursday night with a schedule. I have Jacob going from Locked On Hoosiers on the show as we'll look at the Indiana side of it and get a look at some picks for the weekend and all that other good stuff. You can follow me on social media at P. Jordan Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I'll read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave us 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can check out the show over on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a comment on a video. I'll also read those on a future edition as well. You can always email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Everybody has a good night. Have a good Tuesday. We'll talk to you guys later on in the week. Bye-bye.